Alright, welcome back guys. It's Travja here, and today we're going to make a backpack style plugin. What this is going to do is allow players to have an item in their inventory that when right clicked on, it will open up an inventory and they can put things in there. It basically adds more storage. Um, alright, the first thing we want to do is create a way for them to uh, access the backpack, save it, whatever. Um, you want a hash map. Um, this is going to be just basically a 2 parameter array list. And the first thing you're going to want to store, I can't type, is a UUID. Because when Minecraft updates to 1.8, you're going to want your plugin to be compatible. So you just use UIDs. And the next thing is going to be an inventory. And we'll just name this inventories. Hash map, UUID. I still can't type. Inventory. I'll finish that, and then Control-Shift-O to import everything. So this is where we're going to store everything, and where we're going to retrieve it from. So in here, this is where we're going to open it, but we can't open something that doesn't exist. So we want to create another event handler, and this is join. So in here, this is where we're going to create or retrieve their backpack. So the first thing we're going to want to do is check if plugin.inventories contains key, and I'm going to actually make another get unique ID. Okay, so if it contains their ID, I should probably put an if statement around that. Okay, so if it does not contain their ID, that's when we want to load it in or add it. So, sorry, I'm kind of bouncing around here, but I'm going to come back to the main, and we are going to create a config. So, file configuration, config, and then down here, config equals this dot get config, import everything. Okay, so config.copy, no, the options dot copy defaults, and then if file dot get data folder dot, let's make sure everything's imported, dot exist, and then you put an exclamation at the beginning of this. So if the config does not exist, this is when we are going to save the default config. Why is that? Having problems. Import. Alright. So this will set up our config. Now we need to have it something to create, to go off of. So we're just going to come over here, create a config, and I hate that because I like it in here. Default config.yml. Okay. And then for now, we're just gonna say backpack name, and it'll be dark aqua. No, that's not right. Your backpack. So that's what's going to show at the top of the inventory when they open their backpack. yeah. So now, in our join listener, we need to, because see right here it says that the inventories does not contain it, and here I'm gonna add something else here. When they're added to backpacks and things, it's just going to be like their name and the items in their backpack, which for now is going to be empty. So that's what it's going to look like when we add it in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if plugin, so if the config dot get, let's just say dot get, no, get player dot get name. Actually, nope, we don't want names, we want IDs. So if dot get ID dot toString, because we want to make it so we can actually find it, is not null. This is where we're going to load it, which at the moment, I'm not going to show you that right now because we need to see how to save it first in order to actually load it up. So if this is not null, do this stuff, which we are not going to cover yet. However, if they aren't in the config and they aren't in inventories, here's where we want to load it up. We want to add them to it. So plugin.inventories.put ID and new inventory, I think is, no, that's not how it is. Bukkit dot create inventory and let's see, this one's the one we want. The owner is the player, and the size, let's say 27, because that's a single chest. And then the title is going to be plugin.config.getString backpack name, right? Because that's right there. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that it translates the color codes, that little thingy. So just before that, we're going to do chat color dot translate alternate color codes, and then we want single quote, the ampersand, another single quote, a comma, and then the text to translate. So what that's just going to do is it's going to take all the ampersands with a number following them and replace them with chat color. So that's going to put them in the inventories. And just to be safe, now I'm going to show you how you're going to save it. So here you want a leave event, player quit event, and this is where you're going to save their information to the config. So once again, you're going to get a player and get their ID again. Okay. So regardless of if they are in the config or not, you're going to want to do this just because it keeps it good. So you're going to do plugin.config.set their ID, and then here's where their contents of their inventory is going to be. Except you don't want to put anything there yet. So we'll just say item stack, make that an array, is contents equals the player dot get inventory dot get contents. So that's just going to grab all the item stacks in their inventory, and that's going to save it into the config, and then we need to save it. Okay, so basically what that's going to do is it's going to output a list of items, many of which might be null, but it's going to grab basically all of their name and everything about them, and that's going to save it to the config. So, hold on a second. If we then want to load it from the config, then we have to get the list of object. We'll just name it I. But then plugin dot get config. I don't need to get config. Okay. Plugin dot config dot get list. I believe that's how we do it. ID dot to string plus. Oh yeah, see, that's what I forgot. Okay, so down here we need plus dot items, because then that makes that indent and puts everything in there. Okay, forget the list. Just want it as an object. So get that. And now we want our item stack contents is null. So now we need to check if we need to make sure that this is the actual list of items. So if we say I instance of item stack, an array of item stacks, then contents equals item stack I. So basically what this is saying is if it is an item stack, cast it to an item stack and then put it here. However, if that's not the case, if it is instead a list, instance of, if I is a list, then contents is going to cast as an item stack the list of item stack and I. So we're casting I to a list of item stacks, but we need to make that an array. New item stack, believe, right? Yeah, so we just need to cast that to an array. So this will just make sure that it will output to the contents. This is underlined yellow because it's unchecked, which this doesn't really matter. So basically what that does, it's going to load all their information from here and put it into this array. And then we can take the inventories and set to so we can put them in there 27, and then I'm just going to take the rest of this and put that in there. So that's going to put them in there. Actually, scratch that. inventory. Okay, so now we're just making an inventory with the name, and then we're going to set the contents of this to the contents we just created from the config. Now we can set this to their inventory. So now when they open it up, it's going to have everything loaded from the config. And it saves it here, loads it there, and now we're going to add it so it opens here. So I'm going to get the player and their ID. Okay. So now what we want to do is decide what item is going to open their backpack. So in this case, I'm just going to say an apple. So we're going to make an item stack, and this is going to be the item. Now that item is going to return null if they don't have an item in their hand. So we want to make sure that's not null. And if it is not null, then we can see its type. And if that type is an apple, now we can open up the inventory. Now to do this, we need to see if they're in the list of inventories as we did before. So if plugin.inventories contains key ID, then we can open the inventory. Inventories get ID. And I cannot type. Or can I? Nope, I can, but alright. Plugin.inventories.getID. So that's going to get the inventories and open it up. Everything in that inventory will automatically be saved to this list. We don't need to worry about that. So that'll just open and close according to what they do. And I realized that by making it an apple, they're not going to be able to eat the apple. But right now what this is going to do is if they right click or left click with an apple in their hand, it's going to open the inventory. Which you can change that. I'll show you that. Event.get action. Action dot. So then if you want it to be right click thing, you can say if it's right click air, or if it is right click block. So that's going to check if they're right clicking at all, and then I can move on. So now that's all done with. One last security check, make sure we don't lose their inventory. Basically what we can do, it's never good to copy and paste, but we're going to take all this information and put it down here, but instead of just taking a random player that we don't have, we want all the online players. So get server and get online players. Okay. So we can delete that, and we can delete this because we are in the main right now. We're going to change this to online because that's the new player object we're using. Make sure you have everything imported. And now what this is going to do is it's going to take all the online players and it's going to save their inventory, their backpack to the config. So we should be good with this now. I'll just go run a couple tests and I'll be right back. Alright, and I'm back. So right here I have my Apple, which will act as my backpack. As you can see, it's got the text that we put in the config right there. And I can just load whatever I want in here, all my valuables. The advantage to this is the backpack is almost like a portable ender chest. Because you can put whatever you want in it and you can open it up again. And all your stuff's there. When people pick it up, all it'll do is open theirs, not yours. And as if you notice, by left clicking, it's not doing anything. But by right clicking, it opens it up. The only issue with this right now is that you can put the actual backpack in the backpack. So I'm just going to go over that real quick. What you're going to want to do is basically you're just going to want to check on the inventory click event, I believe. Inventory click event. Event. Okay. Handler. Okay. So player event get. See which one is it? Get who clicked. Okay. So that's gonna get the player that clicked, which evidently we can just cast like that. Okay. So now what we want to do is inventory player.get no. We want event.get actually, I don't think it really matters. Okay. Item stack. No, that doesn't matter. Okay. Event.get inventory should work, and item stack. Event.get item. Okay. Or no. Event.get get current item. Okay, so if the inventory, if its title equals that stuff, okay, so if it is the custom inventory in this case, then we want to check if the item is the backpack. So if is get type is an apple, then we want to cancel the event, so that way they can't move the apple at all if they're currently viewing the backpack. And at this point, if you want to, you can close the inventory and you can send the player a message. So you can say like chat color.red and You're allowed to move your backpack while inside it. Okay, so okay, now we're back here, and hopefully by reloading, it should still have everything in my backpack. Okay, so when I reloaded it, I realized that it's storing their actual inventory, not the backpack. So to fix that, we can just do plugin.inventories and get their backpack and set that as the contents. That'll save that. Should be all good there. And we also need to make the change here when we're saving it from the online players. So inventories, get the ID. That should all be good now. Alright, and I also have this stuff up here, which is basically just copied from over here when they join. But all this does is for all the online players when the server turns on or when it's reloaded, it takes each player, grabs their stuff, and puts it in the inventories list. Alright, so I'm back. Changes we made should work. Should be able to throw this in here, and clicking on that, you aren't allowed to move your backpack while inside it. So that should be good, and we can move it here. Cannot move it anywhere like that, not shift click anything. So now if we reload, has all our stuff still. So that's good. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, you can change it so it's not Apple, or and just make it your own. Their stuff will be in here. It's just stored with the item. So yeah, basically that. Now their backpack, they can store whatever they want in there. You can change the size as long as it's a multiple of 9. Yeah. Thanks for watching. See you next time.